Thank you for watching or listening to this free podcast of the Young Turks. We want to make sure that you get some portion of the show every day. But if you want the full show, which is actually 5 segments, come become a member and support independent media as well. tytnetwork.com/join. Meanwhile, enjoy the free podcast. Well, the Young Turks, huge day ahead for you guys. This election day, we've got we know exactly how many. We got 4 states voting today. Maybe somebody will pop up and be like, boo, we're voting too. Anyway, you never know with those Alaskans. They'll spring a bear trap on you. Anyway, so that's later tonight. We got the Young Turks 6 to 8 o'clock, tyt.com/live. And then right afterwards at 8:05, we go straight into our election coverage. Same bat channel, tyt.com/live. If you notice that the network is gone, you are correct. Website is now tyt.com. Ooh, I'm not saying anything except for the fact that I just said it. A little bit later in this program, the first 2 hours of news we've got for you guys, Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General of New York, who stood up for a lot of progressives and the average man, did a lot of great fighting, is gone. Was that the right thing or not the right thing? I will explain in the next segment, so don't miss that. And then in the second hour, and we've got a lot of musical chairs here because John's going to join me for a segment, then Grace and Brett. We're mixing things up here. We got a lot of hosts. We're going to throw them all at you, okay? In that segment with Grace and Brett, we're going to talk about how cops in Illinois, if Jimmy Dore did not like cops in Illinois enough, wait till he gets a load of this story, have threatened to execute their dogs if you legalize marijuana. Not kidding, and you will see, you'll understand, that's what they're threatening to do. That is unreal, unreal. Okay, so many unreal stories in this world. So, including the one we're going to start with in a second. But I want you guys to remember that the polls are still open in the states that are voting. So what are they? Well, and by the way, what are you going to do? You know me, I think primaries are the most important thing there is. I want you to vote just Democrats today. Why? Because they are deeply progressive and totally uncorrupted. No corporate PAC money. So vote just Democrats today and right now. We have a new app, tyt.com/app, or go to the App Store and type in TYT. You could watch or listen to the show live while you're standing in line to go vote. I'm not saying anything except for what I just said. That's twice already on today's show. Now, who are the just Democrats in these races, and what are the states that are having elections today? Indiana, Ohio, North Carolina, and West Virginia. So Dan Cannon in Indiana, Jenny Marshall, great candidates. I interviewed both of them at Rebel headquarters. Jenny Marshall's in North Carolina's 5th district, John Russell, Ohio, 12th district, and Paula Jean Swearingen in West Virginia, obviously running for the Senate against Joe Manchin. That's a very important election. But other super important elections today that do not involve just Democrats. Dennis Kucinich running against Rob Cordray. That's a fascinating fight for the governor's, at least a Democratic nomination for the governor's seat in Ohio. And then finally, Don Blankenship, basically Paul Bearer from WWE, running in the Republican side for the Senate seat in West Virginia, and a hell of a lot more. So do not miss the election coverage. It's going to be a bonanza. Okay, now let's go do the show and hit you with the most important story, which is quite unfortunate. Let's go over here. Tonight, well, not tonight really, today. Today, President Donald Trump had an announcement, and it was a disastrous one. Let me share it with you.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States. America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail. We will not allow American cities to be threatened with destruction. And we will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth. Today's action sends a critical message. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
Okay, that's as disastrous as you could possibly have. Let me break it down for you. First of all, filled with complete and utter lies. So he talked about how Iran is holding us hostage. How so? We already have a deal with them, and we took away their uranium and their nuclear energy program. They didn't have a nuclear weapons program, but we foreclosed any opportunity for them to have a nuclear weapons program by ending their nuclear energy program. By the way, we have nuclear energy, we have nuclear weapons, so do our allies like Israel that are also in the Middle East. You know how we did it? We froze the assets of the Iranians, their own money. We held their money hostage. And then we blackmailed them because we basically took away their money in a way that I think was totally wrong. But I'm happy we did. Look, I know it's wrong, but on the other hand, we took away their nuclear energy program. It was a great deal. It was an unbelievable deal. We returned nothing except basically their stolen money to them. Okay, we're the ones who took hostages and did blackmail of Iran. It's true, and I'm telling you. Look, at the end of the day, it wound up really great for us, so I'm not necessarily opposed to that policy. It was a pretty cold-hearted policy, and we were not in the right, but that's okay. We got a great result. Well, Donald Trump just ripped that deal up right now, and then he says they've threatened American cities with destruction. No, they haven't. Where? When did they threaten Seattle or San Antonio? No, we're the ones invading countries in the Middle East. So it's not to say that I like the Iranian regime. I don't want them having nuclear weapons. I don't like their regime. I don't buy any of this nonsense about how they're having elections. You know, look, I know our own donors have an oligarchy where they choose who the candidates we vote for are. But yes, the mullahs do something even more stark and clear. And yes, it is clearly run by the Ayatollah and the oligarchy of the mullahs in Iran. I am against their form of government, and I want to liberate the Iranian people. But they did not threaten to destroy our cities. We're the ones starting wars in the Middle East. So that's just not true. Categorically not true that they tried to say that they were going to destroy us. It's just preposterous. We don't need this conflict. And Donald Trump has opened up a can of worms. Of course, he has no idea because he's a mental midget. And so he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to deliver on my promises. And I'm not going to allow them to gain access to nuclear weapons. We already did that. That was the point of the deal. So now Iran says they will fiercely resist this and are now threatening to reopen their nuclear energy plant. Yeah, well played, Donald Trump. Total, absolute moron. By the way, if you're a libertarian and you voted for Donald Trump, you're an absolute sucker. I told you he's a pathological liar. I told you that he would just do whatever the folks with money, the donors, told him to do, and they told him to start this conflict, and he has started this conflict. If we get into a war with Iran, that'll be way worse than what we had in Iraq. And Iraq was already an epic failure, one of the worst decisions America has ever made. Land-wise, Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. And Iraq has 37 million people. Iran has 81 million. They have a real army, and they have real allies like Russia. This is an epic failure on the part of Donald Trump. Well, John Bolton, now his national security advisor, is a neocon who pushed for the Iraq war. He told them, oh, yeah, we got this. Just like we did Iraq. This is going to be great. Mike Pompeo, another neoconservative war hawk monger, saying, oh, yeah, go get it, Mr. President. We don't need any peace deals. We'll show the Iranians. Total idiots. So, look, I know the military-industrial complex that funds all these politicians think, oh, that last war turned out disastrous for everyone else, and 5,000 Americans died in Iraq. But 50,000 got their limbs blown off, got severely injured. But who cares? We made money. You think the Iraq war was a disaster for you? You're right. But was it a disaster for the people who made the war happen? No, the defense contractors made billions upon billions in profits. By the way, so did the oil companies, because wars in the Middle East create instability in the oil markets and oil prices go up. So the people who paid for that war.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Got everything they ever bargained for, but they're making a wrong gamble in Iran. Believe it or not, Iraq was a small-scale war. Iran will not be small-scale. It will, let alone the carnage that it could create. It will devastate the global economic markets. And then all those donors will go, oops, except a couple of the donors who say, oh, whatever the Israeli right wing wants, well, then we're going to give it to them. And by the way, the other faction here that is monumentally important is the new regime in Saudi Arabia. They hate Iran. They're fighting Iran in a proxy war in Yemen. So, well, Donald Trump has a lot of deals with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia also buys a lot of weapons from our defense contractors. So the powerful people in this country are like, oh yeah, Saudi Arabia is right. Oh, we can just win a war with Iran. No big deal. Let's rip up the peace treaty and let them pursue their nuclear energy program again. It makes no sense if you're a rational human being and you care about the American people. But if you don't care about the American people, you're in a defense contractor and you make money from death and war and destruction, you're an oil company, it might make sense in the short term. But even for those guys, in the long term, they're going to get way more than they bargained for, unfortunately. And I hope to God it doesn't lead to war, but it doesn't look good right from the get-go. So let me give you more details. HuffPost explains the U.S. will not extend waivers on sanctions targeting Iran's nuclear program, effectively ending its compliance with the 2015 international agreement under which Iran accepted restrictions on its nuclear program in exchange for economic relief. Now, let's be clear. Later, they will lie, and most of the American media will call it 50-50 and say, oh, Iran was the one that broke the deal. No, you just saw it with your own eyes. We broke the deal. We broke it, okay? Now, here's one other lie from Donald Trump. Watch.
At the heart of the Iran deal was a giant fiction that a murderous regime desired only a peaceful nuclear energy program. Today, we have definitive proof that this Iranian promise was a lie.
No, you're the only liar in the room. So what he's referring to is Netanyahu's total BS speech about, oh my God, Iran lied. Now, in brackets is in the past. Wait, there's a giant difference. If Iran lied in the past, and again, I don't trust their regime. I don't think they're good guys at all. I think they oppress their own people. But if they lied in the past before the deal, and we caught them, and then we made the deal, and they have not lied since, okay, you make peace deals with your enemies, not with your friends. If they lied after the deal, well, that would be really important, and they would be in violation of the deal. But let's clarify here. Again, HuffPost explains, much of Netanyahu's presentation centered on information that was publicly available in a 2007 declassified intelligence report, and Netanyahu did not state that Iran was in current violation of the deal. All that was marketing with old information This is just like the lead up to the Iraq war. Old, outdated information, and then you put it in the same sentence as, well, I mean, I had to kill the deal because Iran lied. Wait, they lied back in 2007. It has nothing to do with this deal. And we already knew that. It's declassified information. So when Trump makes it seem like Iran broke the deal by lying about this deal, that is totally 100% not true. In fact, his own defense secretary doesn't think it's true. I'll get to that in a second. So why is he doing this? For a number of reasons. One, on the campaign trail, he had called this the worst deal ever. Now, that leads to, so why did he call it the worst deal ever? Why? Because one, he's a lying politician, and he had to say, I make the best deals. Everybody else is terrible. They make the terrible deals, the worst deals. We haven't been winning. We've been losing, and I'm going to start winning. So that was his strategy, and a bunch of idiots believed it and voted for him. Yes, I'm talking to you, the Trump voters. Oh, no, and especially the libertarians, or the ones that fancy themselves libertarians. Oh, no, Trump is for America first, and he's not going to get us involved in wars in the Middle East. He said Iraq was a disaster. Why did he say that? Because everyone else sucks and Trump is the best. Oh, Bush, he didn't know what he was doing. I'm running against Jeb Bush. The Iraq war was a disaster. Even though he was in favor of the Iraq war. I said many years, I said it was wrong. He said it way after everybody realized the Iraq war was wrong. So just nothing but nonstop lies. But the second reason he said it during the campaign is everything Obama does, I spit on it. I'm against it. Paris Climate Accord, well, then I'm against it. Well, the whole world's for it. Well, Obama was for it, so I'm against it. Iran deal, Obama was for it, so I'm against it. Obamacare, he was for it, so I'm against it. And the list goes on and on and on. He has a sick problem with Obama. So anyway, I'll leave that portion of it alone. Well, let's go back to Trump in the past. Trump has long pressed his advisors to come up with an alternative strategy to contain Iran's nuclear efforts. When his advisors failed to deliver, Trump ordered Congress in October to pass legislation that would unilaterally change U.S. commitments under the deal. In other words, he's like, I'm going to make the best deals. Okay, all my advisors, come up with a better deal than this. They come back to him, they're like, sorry, sad to report, this is actually a great deal, and we literally cannot make it any better. Okay, then I'm going to go over to Congress. Congress, you make it better. Sorry to report, Mr. President, but you're an idiot. And us Republicans were liars, and we lie all the time in the middle of elections because we hate the other side, and we want our supporters to hate the other side. So we pretended it was a bad deal, but in reality, we literally have no idea how to make it better. So that Congress passed nothing. Okay, so is it true that Iran is in violation? Again, that lie is so bold and brazen that he grazes it by saying Netanyahu and Iran and they were lying, but he can't actually say that they violated the deal because they haven't. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which monitors the use of nuclear energy, has verified Iranian compliance with the agreement multiple times since 2015 when they struck the deal. Most recently in March of this year. They are in compliance. We are sending invasive researchers and people who are trained at the International Atomic Energy Agency to do this for a living into their country, which we would never allow in our country. Could you imagine if the UN came in and said, that's a step aside, we're going to inspect all your nuclear, not only weapons programs, but energy programs. We would never allow them to do that in America. But Iran agreed to it because we held their money hostage. And they report back, no, they don't have it. They're not pursuing a nuclear energy program. They're not. They're in compliance. Okay, but they're not alone. Defense Secretary James Mattis, that's Trump's defense secretary, an outspoken critic of the Iranian government, testified before Congress on April 26th of this year that the nuclear deal provided, quote, robust measures to inspect Iran's nuclear program and verify that it is complying with the deal. So, unsurprisingly, another lie by the Trump White House that is can't even be verified by their own defense secretary or the UN. So, last month, an Iranian foreign minister, Javad Zarif, suggested if the U.S. pulled out of the nuclear accord, his country could also exit the deal and resume its nuclear program at a much greater speed. Iran has no reason to continue to abide by the agreement if the economic benefits start to diminish, he said. Oh, boy. The whole world needs to buckle up for this. And look, let's talk about, is there any way to avoid conflict? Let me give you this one part that's important. as HuffPost again explains. But most of the economic benefits Iran receives through the nuclear deal do not come directly from the U.S., which maintains a primary embargo against Iran. When Trump previously waived sanctions, he suspended secondary sanctions, which penalize other countries for doing business with Iran. So that's good news, bad news. The good news is most of the benefits, economic benefits to Iran, come from the other countries involved in the deal, European countries and Russia, okay? So now, obviously, Russia is also part of Europe, but the European countries are one bloc, France, Germany, etc., and Russia is a separate power. And they all agreed to it. The U.S. agreed to it, the Russians agreed to it, Europeans and the Iranians. So now the Europeans and the Russians want to continue the deal. So they might continue the deal, which might keep Iran in the deal and then not restart their nuclear energy program and not create more hostilities. Now, we've taken away a lot of their incentive to do so. Now, the bad news is, now Trump is saying, don't test me, I mean what I say. Remember, what he's actually threatening is action against our allies. He's saying if our allies do business with Iran, which they are now under the old deal, he's like, I'm going to strike against our allies. Obviously not militarily, but economically. At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today. What a terrible, terrible idea. So not only do you violate a peace deal for no goddamn reason, but then you turn around and antagonize our allies and the Russians against us. This is the one moment where I hope and pray that Trump actually does have a deal with the Russians and is colluding with them. Look, if you say it right now, it certainly doesn't look like it. Russia doesn't want him to do this. You are right about that. So let's see how this thing plays out, because I'm crossing my fingers, and here again, I hope he's got a deal where Putin says, what are you doing? No, back down, right? Look, it's too late. He did the press conference. It appears to be too late, but who knows with Trump? But by the way, if Trump thinks, I don't need Putin anymore, and they had a deal, these are ifs, okay? And Putin goes, what did you say? Well, then the next shoe to drop would be whatever Putin has on Trump would start to get released. So, now look, that might get Trump out of office if I'm right about that. But Mike Pence also agrees with John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, and the Republican donors, and also wants this war. He might want it even more than Trump, and he doesn't appear to have any deal with the Russians. So now the last part of this is, guys, you put aside the speculation on the Russians being able to stop this or not, and let's just assume for a second there's no secret deals or anything. So we have us, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, and some of the other Sunni governments on our side. Okay, and we're the ones violating the deals. Okay. On the other side, you have Iran, Russia, and then you got to see where China and Europe come out on this. But if we start an actual war with Iran, again, they think it's going to be a pushover. No, Iran has a real army, and they have a ton of people, and it's tough geography over there. They've got mountains, they've got their weapons programs, conventional weapons, deep in the bunkers inside the mountains. They got 81 million people. We think we have air superiority and sea superiority. Against just Iran, maybe. If Russia comes in, no, not at all. But even if it's, quote unquote, just against Iran and hence against all the Shia Muslims in the world is basically what it'll come to, They could plant mines all over the water, and that could do untold damage to our ships. Here's another thing they could do. They could release 100, 1,000, 10,000 drones into the sky. And then all of a sudden, and where are they going to get them from? First of all, we've been selling those drones all over the world. Second of all, they could easily buy it from the Russians or the Chinese. And then all of a sudden, the air superiority we thought we had, oops, Jesus Christ, the sky is filled with drones. So look, I hope to God it never comes to any of that. But we're messing now for the first time with an actual world war. Not a little war in the Middle East. And yes, I'm referring to Iraq, which was an epic disaster. As compared to Iran, it would be a little war in the Middle East. So that's what Donald Trump did today. And unfortunately, since the Republican Party is deeply corrupt, even if you got Trump out of office, it wouldn't get any better. Well, now with this press conference, it can't get any worse. But Pence is not any kind of saving grace. So the Republican Party has spoken. They are for war. They will always be for war. And God help us if this triggers that conflict in the Middle East. And right now we're headed on that path with nothing but neoconservatives surrounding Donald Trump, telling him, oh, Mr. President, you're a stable genius. You're so tough and strong. Of course you'll be able to bully the Iranians and get them to do whatever you want and bully everyone else allied with Iran. Of course, and even our allies. Of course, there'll be pushovers, Mr. President. Everyone else is weak, and you're incredibly strong, Mr. President. Oh, yeah, I like that. I like that kind of talk. And so now we're on this path. God help us all. If those hostilities start, there is no end to them. And it would be a disaster like we have not seen in our lifetimes. All right, I got to take a break. I'll be right back. You're right in the middle of this podcast. We got another great segment coming up for you. If you'd like the full show, which is actually 5 segments, go to tytnetwork.com/join. You become a member, you support the show, you support independent media, and you get the whole 2-hour show ad-free every day. Let's go do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks. Not a lot of time here, so I'm going to read one tweet and the rest will be YouTube Super Chats. Chris Allen makes a great point. Trump stirring up more war. That peace prize is probably on its way. Remember, a bunch of Republicans submitted Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know if it's their idea of a sick joke. Okay, Mr. Steve O on YouTube Super Chat says, breaking, Robert Mueller's team has questioned a Russian oligarch about his company's 2017 payments to Michael Cohen. Ooh. So, but with the Iran war coming, what difference does it make? Okay, I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. Okay, so Chris Shields says, wasn't it Russia that released a video showing a simulation of striking Florida with an ICBM? But yeah, let's get deeper into the Middle East, SMFH. So, yes, it was actually Trump's buddy, Vladimir Putin, who actually threatened American cities, not Iran. But Trump never said a word about it. Never said a word. Okay, so let's see how that turns out. Sophia Lambert says, Iraq 2.0 commences with veteran designers Bolton, Netanyahu, and Haspel at the helm. 3 times the bombs, blood, and brutality, courtesy of Cadet Bone Spurs Entertainment and GOP Jellyfish Incorporated. About right. But there's also Sheldon Adelson, who has given tens of millions of dollars to the Republicans in an effort to start a war in the Middle East on behalf of the right-wing government of Israel. Perhaps mission accomplished. Perhaps we should have a democracy instead of an oligarchy where rich billionaires who run casinos, or perhaps even the ones that bankrupted them, could just take over the country and do whatever the hell they want with it. Okay, let's go over here. Eric Schneiderman was the Attorney General for the state of New York, and he was a great fighter for regular Americans. He really was. He fought against Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley when they did the abuses in the financial industry back in 2007, 2008. He took on ExxonMobil for climate change. He fought for women's rights in very substantive ways. He fought to make sure that women who were entering clinics could do so safely and not be accosted by protesters yelling and abusing them. And the list goes on and on of all the positive things that Eric Schneiderman has done. So I'm going to overshare here and tell you that when this story broke yesterday, it broke in the middle of our live show, and I said, no, wait a minute. We got to read the whole story. No way we're going to rush on air with claims of sexual, basically assault and abuse that Schneiderman has done against at least 4 women. I said, he's going up against Trump. Trump opponents somehow wind up having stuff leaked about them. So hold on, okay? And the New York Attorney General, one in the past was Eliot Spitzer, and he fought against Wall Street. He was called the Sheriff of Wall Street. And all of a sudden, powerful people found allegations against him also involving sex. So I said, let's see what the source is. There's hatchet men out there for the right wing. Well, I looked at the source after the show, and it turns out they got him. And it is damning. First of all, it's the New Yorker, and 2 people reporting on it. One is Ronan Farrow. His credentials in this field, impeccable. The second is Jane Mayer, simply put, one of the best reporters in the country. So no, these allegations are very much real. So let me begin to tell you what Schneiderman apparently did. The 4 women involved, as Farrow and Meyer explained, they allege that he repeatedly hit them, often after drinking, frequently in bed, and never with their consent. Manning Barish and Selvaratnam, those are the 2 that came out publicly, categorized the abuse he inflicted on them as, quote, assault. They did not report their allegations to the police at the time, but both say that they eventually sought medical attention after having been slapped hard across the ear and face and also choked. Now, Schneiderman claims that they were just doing role-playing, as you're going to find out in the piece. No, that does not appear to be what happened. Selvaratnam says that Schneiderman warned her that he could have her followed and her phones tapped, and they both say that he threatened to kill them if they broke up with him. Schneiderman's spokesperson said that he never made any of these threats. Well, they are well documented, as you're about to see, and that obviously would be an enormous abuse of power on top of the sick assaults that are alleged here. A third former romantic partner of Schneiderman's told Manning Barish and Selvaratnam that he also repeatedly subjected her to non-consensual physical violence, but she told them that she is too frightened of him to come forward. The New Yorker has independently vetted the accounts that they gave of her allegations. A 4th woman, an attorney who has held prominent positions in the New York legal community, says that Schneiderman made an advance toward her. When she rebuffed him, he slapped her across the face with such force that it left a mark that lingered the next day. She recalls screaming in surprise and pain and beginning to cry, and says that she felt frightened. She is asked to remain unidentified, but shared a photograph of the injury with the New Yorker. Hard to get more credible than these allegations. This is not, as in the case of Al Franken, someone who works at a conservative media outlet with some allegations that some right-wing apparatchiks knew ahead of time about. No, these are incredibly credible witnesses talking to very credible reporters, and they have some evidence backing them up as well. So let me give you more. First, Schneiderman says that in the privacy of intimate relationships, this is his denial basically, I have, and partly admitting it, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity. I have not assaulted anyone. I have never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross. Now, if you notice, one, he admits that some of these allegations did in fact happen. He's just saying that they had consented to it, but not even exactly. Remember, he's a lawyer. He said that he would never cross the line of non-consensual sex, but those are not the allegations. The allegations, there's non-consensual violence. Now, not only violence during sex that they did not consent to, but violence outside of sex they did not consent to. And in one case, when a woman said no to him, he slapped her across the face. and again, in a way that left a mark. So Manning Barish, one of the women involved here, says, I want to make it absolutely clear, and she dated him for a number of years. She says, this was under no circumstances a sex game gone wrong. This did not happen while we were having sex. I was fully dressed and remained that way. It was completely unexpected and shocking. I did not consent to physical assault. He hit her so hard, she bled from the ear. She had to go to a doctor. The doctor confirms that is, in fact, what happened. She was afraid to and embarrassed to admit to the doctor at the time that it was because she was slapped across the face. But when the New Yorker reached out to the doctor later and asked, were the injuries consistent with the possibility of being slapped across the face and in the ear, then the doctor confirmed yes. And he also confirmed, most importantly, the severity of the injuries. And apparently she was affected by that for years. And the bleeding continued after that day. And from time to time, she would again have problems with the ear and blood would continue to come out. So not a light situation here, significant in that case. In the following days, Manning Barish confided to 3 close female friends that Schneiderman had hit her. All of them have confirmed this to the New Yorker. She was distraught, one of the friends, a high-profile media figure, says. She was very, very upset. This wasn't a gentle smack. He clocked her ear. I was shocked. Okay, so this is not just stuff that's coming out against Schneiderman now. This was documented years ago. She told her friends, and they confirmed it. It's absolutely damning. Now, another part of this, you can say it's small, but to me, it shows character or lack thereof, and it greatly bothered me, and especially from a guy that I thought was on the right side and had done great things publicly. He would constantly belittle and demean these accomplished women whenever he started dating them, and he would just say nonstop things that brought him down and depressed them. He would attack them on their strengths. Now, they were all progressive women, and one of them was going to go to, the Manning Barish was going to go to a rally against gun violence after what happened in Newtown. Now, that makes a lot of sense. And she wanted to be part of change, and she was participating in that process and knew some of the organizers. And Schneiderman made fun of her and everyone else who attended the rally, and he called the demonstrators, quote, losers. So while publicly appearing to be on the side of progressives, apparently people going to protests, he thought privately were just losers. Okay. And then one time he was using her computer and she was working on an important political project, and he apparently said, quote, oh, look at little Mimi. So cute. She's working. Now, if it was just one person and you're going back decades and the man is reformed, well, you'd still have a ton of issues because this is assault. So I'm not in any way minimizing that. But it would be a slightly different issue. But this does not go back decades. This is from 2013 on, all the way to 2017. So that's last year. And so it's very recent. And if you see that quote and you say, well, maybe that's just one person, they had a bad breakup, but it isn't one person. It's at least 4 people, and they have incredibly similar accounts. And now let's go to Tanya Selvaratnam. She said, he had said that he would have to kill me if we broke up on multiple occasions. He also told me he could have me followed and could tap my phone. No, that's absolutely beyond the pale. As all of this. So, and again, that abuse of power cannot be tolerated. So, look, Eliot Spitzer, I think, was in a lot of ways a hero for how he stood up for the average person against Wall Street. And they found out that he was going to prostitutes. You can be really upset at his breaking of his marital vows. You can be upset that he prosecuted people who went to prostitutes before, and that hypocrisy I get, right? But it was consensual affairs with prostitutes, which I think should be legal. So that's in a totally, totally different category. Here you have a guy saying, while he's Attorney General, I will have you followed, I'll have you tapped. In one case, he said, when one of them jokingly said, hey, you're jaywalking, and that's against the law. He apparently seriously told her, I am the law. No way. Has to step down immediately. And by the way, he has. So Schneiderman took about 3 hours after the story broke to say, okay, no mas. And he stepped down. I'll get back to consequences for him in 1 second. But unfortunately, there's more here, and it is devastating. The former girlfriend, another one, told Selvaratnam she'd once been so afraid of Schneiderman that she'd written down an extensive account of the abuse, locked the document in a safe deposit box, and given keys to 2 friends. Oh, that's disastrous. This is not a misunderstanding about what was agreed to or not agreed to in sex. Again, a very, very serious issue, but a different issue. This is women who are so afraid for their lives. And by the way, Selvaratnam also told a couple of friends, if anything happens to me, it was Schneiderman. That's how scared she was. And another girlfriend locks it up in a safety deposit box. If anything happened to me, it was Schneiderman. Oh, disaster. Okay, so God, why? Sometimes it's hard not to despair of humanity. Jesus Christ. Selvaratnam says, sometimes he'd tell me, oh my God, listen to this. Sometimes he'd tell me to call him master, and he slapped me until I did. Important context. Selvaratnam, who was born in Sri Lanka, has dark skin, and she recalls that he started calling me his brown slave and demanding that I repeat that I was his property. Oh. All right, well, there goes Schneiderman. And in fact, CNN reporting, shortly after he announced his resignation, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said they had opened an investigation into the allegations against Schneiderman. And as well they should. So, Eric Schneiderman is gone. And given that Donald Trump has very similar allegations against him, including by one of his ex-wives, I assume that we'll be awaiting the president's resignation momentarily as well. All right, speaking of which, let's go to the Republican reaction. Okay. Eric Schneiderman has been accused by 4 women who dated him, actually 3 women who dated him, and one who he made advances to, who rejected him, of assault. He slapped that woman across the face who did not agree to relations with him. He apparently slapped, choked, spit on the other women. Now, context before the Republican reaction. Schneiderman has been a vocal opponent of Trump, pursuing a series of legal actions against his policies as president and filing numerous lawsuits against his enterprises long before he took office. It's true. He's fought Trump for years now. And in fact, he just got a $25 million settlement on the scam that was Trump University. And he was in the middle of making sure that New York could prosecute Donald Trump if Donald Trump tried to pardon people like Michael Cohen or others involved in some of the cases that relate back to him. I thought his efforts there were fantastic. And in fact, I recently did a video about that particular fight that Schneiderman was in to make sure that we could hold Trump and his associates accountable at the state level. Now, having said that, it turns out that Schneiderman in his private life was an absolute disaster and resigned and should have, and the Manhattan District Attorney Office is looking into possible charges against him. So, gleeful response, of course, from the Republicans, which is understandable. Kellyanne Conway simply retweets an old tweet from Schneiderman and says, gotcha. And the tweet, of course, had said, no one is above the law, and I'll continue to remind President Trump and his administration of that fact every day. So give the devil their due. She's allowed to say gotcha all she wants on this case. Donald Trump Jr., the president's son, says about another tweet about sexual assault survivors from Schneiderman, this didn't age well. True enough. Dana Loesch, despicable spokesperson for the NRA, says, literally fighting women is not the same as fighting for women, but he did fight for women and apparently did fight them in his private life, so both are true. But they get to gloat. I get that, and it is fair, and Schneiderman deserves it. What's interesting is that Donald Trump, back in 2013, almost predicted this. in a sense, I'll give him credit for that. He said, Weiner is gone, Spitzer is gone. Next will be lightweight Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. Is he a crook? Wait and see, worse than Spitzer or Weiner. Now, understand that Schneiderman was pursuing him for violations of the law, including the scam called Trump University. Schneiderman eventually won on that, and Trump paid out $25 million. And Trump makes a lot of brash allegations against all of his opponents. So a broken clock is right twice a day. On the other hand, there are a lot of cryptic references that Trump makes to other famous people, sometimes famous Democrats. He did this to Bill Clinton too. Hey, Bill, don't make me say the things I know. What did they know? What do they know about each other? What are they doing in these elite circles where they won't, dish the dirt on each other? So I don't know if that's the case. All we have is that tweet to go on, and as I just explained to you, it could be for a couple of different reasons. But now we're going to get to the Republican hypocrisy in a second, but hold, a little bit more gloating, this time from Fox News.
Tonight, an alleged physical abuse of multiple women by New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, so-called champion of choice, and the report is getting stunning reaction almost instantly.
It's interesting to note that in 2013, Donald Trump tweeted, quote, Weiner is gone, Spitzer is gone, next will be lightweight AG Eric Schneiderman. Is he a crook? Wait and see, worse than Spitzer or Weiner.
So they kept rubbing it in throughout the day, and that's totally fine. Calling him a so-called champion of choice, he actually was very much for pro-choice and actually passed legislation. Look, there's a lot of irony and hypocrisy when it comes to Schneiderman on Schneiderman's side. When he was a state legislator, he pushed for a bill that would outlaw choking more clearly and give more severe consequences. One of the things he's accused of is choking, non-consensual. So they're right to rub it in any way they like. Now, of course, two can play at that game. Let me tell you about Rob Porter, one of the top aides to Donald Trump. You remember he resigned in disgrace because I could go over 1,000 allegations here, but let's just go to one of his ex-wives, Colby Holderness. She said the thing that Rob Porter would do most frequently is he would throw me down on a bed and he would just put his body weight on me and he'd be yelling at me. But as he was yelling, he'd be grinding an elbow or knee into my body to emphasize his anger. The choking was just very scary and dehumanizing. That sounds almost identical to what Schneiderman did. But let's be fair here, okay? And let's give Donald Trump a chance to respond. Maybe he was just as tough on Rob Porter as him and his allies are being on Eric Schneiderman. So this is what Trump had said about Rob Porter when he left the White House. Let's watch.
Do you have a comment on Mr. Porter?
Thanks, guys.
Well, we wish him well. He worked very hard. I found out about it recently, and I was surprised by it. It was very sad when we heard about it, and certainly he's also very sad. Now, he also, as you probably know, he says he's innocent. And I think you have to remember that. He said very strongly yesterday that he's innocent.
Okay, he said it very strongly. I mean, we have such an uneven playing field here in America. Democrats get accused, if they did it, like in the case of Schneiderman, it certainly looks like he did it, they immediately resign. Republicans, they deny it very strongly. And so he was very sad, not for the victims, if you noticed. He was very sad for Porter that he got found out that he did domestic violence against his partners. In fact, I'm going to read you graphic 48 here because Trump had gone on to say about Porter, we certainly wish him well. It's obviously a very tough time for him. He did a very good job while he was in the White House. We hope that he will have a wonderful career. I don't remember Schneiderman or Trump or Kellyanne Conway or anyone else saying about Schneiderman, it's a sad time for him. We wish him well. I hope he has a wonderful career. But I'm not done. So in the 1990s, Harry Hurt III wrote a book called Lost Tycoon, The Many Lives of Donald J. Trump. And in it, he talked about what his ex-wife, Ivana Trump, said in a divorce deposition. Now, this is under sworn testimony. It's under oath, okay? And by the way, Ivana does not exactly deny it. I'll get to that in a second as well. Here's a description from, funny enough, Jane Mayer of the New Yorker, the same person who broke the Schneiderman story. Hurt obtained a copy of her own sworn divorce deposition from 1990, in which she stated that the previous year her husband had raped her in a fit of rage. That's Donald Trump raping his wife. In Hurt's account, Trump was furious that a scalp reduction operation he'd undergone to eliminate a bald spot had been unexpectedly painful. Ivana had recommended the plastic surgeon. In retaliation, Hurt wrote, Trump yanked out a handful of his wife's hair and then forced himself on her sexually. Well, that sounds even worse than what Schneiderman did. What Schneiderman did was terrible, the choking, the slapping, the spitting, and the terrible things that he said to these women. But no one's accused him of rape. Trump's own wife at the time said he raped me, yanked me around by the hair, etc. There's more details. Afterward, according to the book, she spent the night locked in a bedroom crying. In the morning, Trump asked her, quote, with menacing casualness, does it hurt? Trump has denied both the rape allegation and the suggestion that he had a scalp reduction procedure. Just think, okay, look, first of all, this is not a gray area. This is not he said, she said. He doesn't even, he paid her $14 million, and I'm sure for a number of different reasons, and they had just gotten divorced. But Ivana Trump is very clear about this under oath. And again, I'll get to her so-called clarification in a second. So he drags her around by the hair, he rapes her, she cries all night, he comes back. And forget the tone of voice. He callously asks her if she's okay, but then he denies the rape and the scalp reduction procedure. That's like saying, hey, did you commit a triple homicide? I deny the triple homicide plus the jaywalking. Who cares about the jaywalking? Why? But no, it's all about his own ego. Hey, I don't have a bald spot. Oh, my wife, did I rape her? Yeah, no. I mean, I paid her off, but no, I didn't rape her. But I definitely don't have a bald spot. Hurt said that the incident, which was detailed in Ivana's deposition, was confirmed by two of her friends, just like Schneiderman. The girlfriends at the time confirmed that Schneiderman's girlfriend had told him at the time, Ivana at the time had told her girlfriends that Donald Trump had physically assaulted her and raped her. Now to her non-denial denial. She confirmed that she had said in a deposition that her husband had raped her. So not even denying it. She confirmed she absolutely said it under oath, and I guess if she lied, she should be locked up in prison. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to lie about somebody, right, about rape. But added that she did not want those words to be interpreted in, quote, a literal or criminal sense. What other sense is there for the word rape? Is there a non-literal version of rape? Is there a non-criminal version of rape? So, Ivana Trump, what did you mean if you didn't mean literal or criminal? Or were you happy to take the money? Look, Ivana Trump is also a victim. So, okay, it is what it is. She's covering for him, but doing a very, very poor job at it because she says, yes, I did say under oath that he raped me. It just wasn't criminal rape. Again, I don't know non-criminal rape. I don't know what that means. So, should Schneiderman resign? Absolutely, and he did. Should Donald Trump resign? Well, he did the same and worse. He absolutely, positively should resign by the Schneiderman standard. But yet, in this country, it's not how it works. If a Democrat does something wrong, and sometimes if they just allege that he did something wrong, gone, immediate resignation. When a Republican does something heinous, despicable, nope, no resignation, no apology, no consequences. The Republican Party and its followers that tolerate this are grotesque. There's no Democrat today in the country going, oh no, Schneiderman should have stayed. Oh, so what? So what that he beats people? Oh, those are just allegations. Who cares? Who cares that there's incredibly good reporting by Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer at the New Yorker? Who cares about the victims? No Democrat is saying that. No liberal that is saying that. When it's a Republican, oh yeah, so what? So what that he raped his wife? I mean, she said it under oath. Under oath, she confirms she says it under oath. So what? So what? So what? I want the president. I like the president. He hates the same people I hate. I don't care that he raped people. Just own it, Republicans. Own it. That's who you are. You're monsters. Just live with it. Young Turks. Thanks for watching or listening to this free version of the Young Turks podcast. You know that the full show is at tytnetwork.com/join. If you become a member, you get the full show ad-free. We love you for watching or listening. Either way, there's going to be a new free podcast tomorrow. You can keep on doing that. But if you want to get the full show ad-free, tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.